It's a yes-back maximum, the first of this contest. Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Well, that one hurt a little bit, didn't it? Welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast. This is episode 27, the fourth of our World Cup Special. My name is Munter. We have Lugsy and Jacko with us this evening. We are, of course, powered by Piranha Grip Socks. Bring flair to your game. Non-slip grip technology designed to minimise slipping in your shoe and maximise output. Designed and tested right here in New Zealand by professional athletes. The choice of sock by Black Caps, Stephen Conway, Finn Allen, Michael Bracewell, Ish Sodhi, Jimmy Neesham, White Ferns, Mealy and Jess Kerr, and Molly Penfold, as well as the number one women's bowler in the world, Sophie Eccleston. Performance, quality and style. Don't listen to us on performance and quality. That's what the athletes are for. But I think we know a little bit about style because we know that the most important thing in cricket is not runs and wickets. It's not being captain of New Zealand and having a strike rate of only 100. It's not winning a meaningless group game against England. It's not even catching Joss Buttler twice. It's looking good. So for the T20 World Cup, which we were covering with 2 podcasts a week, get yourself a pair of Piranha's latest range by using the code TMC15, which gets you 15% off. Okay, boys, since we last recorded, India and South Africa played on the quickest wicket known to man in Perth, where South Africa did the business. Australia beat Ireland, but they lost morally, which I think is what really matters. Sri Lanka took care of the Afghans. And then last night, in one of the better games of the tournament, England flexed their pre-tournament muscles and tipped over our caps by 20. Okay, well, let's start with the Piranha plays. I'm going to go back to the Perth game to start. We've got Sky playing some pretty funky shots, maybe the pull shot over fine leg. We've got Arshdeep Singh nicking off de Kock with an away swinger, and then a couple balls later, bringing it back to trap Rousseau with an in-swinger. But my nomination from that game is just Nortje bowling so fast that first slip is standing on the 30-metre circle. From the Aussie game against Ireland, I know Australia won, but there wasn't a lot of memorable stuff. Maybe Stark's double wicket maiden, 2 big induckers, 25 for 5. I'll go with the big fast bowler McCarthy's effort on the boundary where he dove back, caught it one-handed, then he sort of chucked it in and then landed on those big advertising triangles.
I'm glad you brought that one up because it was the one I was going to go with. But I was also thinking, is it still fun to say that still go down as a drop? Or does that still circle around the club cricket circles when someone drops a real tough chance? Like, that will go down as a chance, though, and that will be $2 to the kitty.
Yeah, that will go down as a chance, unfortunately. So maybe that can't be a play. It
certainly did have some serious flair to it. It was a ripping chance, and he gave it everything. But,
I was actually thinking about those wee advertisement triangles. They're a bit of a nuisance when you land on them. They're quite big.
Yeah,
they look quite painful.
Stokes had some sort of harsh words for the Toblerone, didn't he?
Wasn't that how Topley
got injured? Yeah,
done his ankle or something.
What are they made of?
It's sort of like that stuff that the like a real estate board out front of your house is made out of. I'm pretty sure.
It's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll do it like, especially in a triangle form. Like a triangle's quite a like a stubborn shape when it's held up like that.
Yeah, it feels like triangle. Why is it a triangle shape? It feels unnecessarily pointy.
I mean, you probably got to it provides a surface on each side to see the advertiser's logo. Probably.
Yeah,
they'll probably get it done.
There'll be an actual reason.
Top 2 inches there, Munter.
We're a renowned podcast, mate.
Eventually there'll be a TMC logo on one of those triangles, so let's not complain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, it won't be from a Sri Lanka-Afghanistan game because I've got absolutely no play of the days because I didn't see a lick of that game.
Yeah, just quietly on the triangles. One thing I've found I've sort of only figured out the last couple of years is having like sort of a square side on the rope so the ball sort of hits it and stops. Whereas like in the old days when it was a triangle, the ball sort of used to hit it at pace and fly into the crowd.
Which is many a nipper lost the front teeth.
Oh, jeez! Imagine
like
copying that.
Just
like a ramp into the crowd at pace. So, yeah, some improvements to be made.
Okay. We put the ICC on notice, TMC. I guess the only other game is some meaningless game against England. There was a few from last night. For New Zealand, maybe it's Southie's wee slick run out of Butler with that wee backhand.
That's actually low key one of the great run outs I've seen.
Yeah, great skills.
Don't he absolutely smash that? Our king, who needed to do something for the boys, he's one of the great stops. Bullet throw in, and Southie's made that look quite easy. That was actually tremendous work.
Very slick, very slick. Like you said, made it look way easier than it actually should have been. The other one I've got for New Zealand, I'm going with Phillips's 6 off Mark Wood over long on. Obviously, Wood was bowling gas, 150 plus, and just to sort of stand and deliver and just sort of smoke him about 90 odd metres down the ground, I thought was pretty fucking impressive.
Well, considering that first ball he got, he looked like he barely saw it, and it was in the rope before Phillips knew what to do. I mean,
that was so quick.
Quite nicely, really.
That was so quick. That was about 155 clicks, wasn't it?
Yeah. How fun's when the ball's when it's fast and you're like it comes up 155 and you're like, holy shit, that actually did look 155.
Yeah.
I was barely saying that.
It's a special sight, isn't it? And it probably takes me back to the Norchie having a bloke on the 30-metre circle. Like if you're a batter and you look behind you and like the cordon's standing on the 30-metre circle, you are shitting bricks.
I'll tell you what, kid you not, and this is as we touched on early on, sort of reason 9,000 I never made it, but I really did that factored into me. If someone was bowling quite quick, but the keeper was standing reasonably close, it calmed me down quite a bit. If that keeper was back a mile and the guy was running in hard, I was like, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah. I wouldn't have minded you saying, asking the keeper just to come up a bit, just to, ease your nerves out there.
You could just put me at ease a wee bit.
Yeah.
Or the opposite, when you got a real slow bowler and the guy goes back, he's catching it on the double bounce.
Yeah. But it's intimidating me, so.
Yeah. And I've only got one more, and then you boys can have a crack. I've got to go. Probably Josh Butler has to have a mention. He was probably the difference in that game. His sort of flat bat shot off Bolt. It was Bolt bowled this slower bouncer, and he kind of top-handed it, forehanded, I guess, tennis style, back over his head. I can't remember. It either went for 4 or 6, but it was to sort of have the brains to hit it where there was no fielders and also have the power to hit that down the ground is probably something only a couple of people could do, and he's obviously one of them. And I think we've got one more, a late entry from one of our own, Jackson Latham. Do you care to elaborate from your flu game?
Yeah, I mean, we just sort of talked about it pre-pod, but one of the reasons I was away Monday was exams and being a bit sick, but yeah, really managed to pull through on club cricket on the weekend and grab a bag with the flu. So, me, MJ, 2 of the great performances. So I'd like to nominate that as well.
What are we talking here?
Did you get a pizza? Was there a pizza delivery the night?
Yeah, I don't actually know. I think I was just straight flu. Took 4 COVID tests, passed them all negative. So not COVID, but I mean just straight up flu. We're talking 4 coffees, few Panadols, couple of Sudafeds in the day. So yeah, really knocked me around a bit, but happy to still perform for the boys.
Did the team win, or did we?
Does it matter?
Day one.
Day one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that down today. Yeah.
No, we'll lose next week. Yeah.
And it won't matter.
Nah.
Heard about that story. I was going to go Josh Butler, but I'm going to go. My vote's going to be Jackson Latham.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think you covered off pretty well the sort of the big plays from the last few games. I think it's got to be first slip on the 30-metre circle for me. That is just special stuff.
Thought you'd like that.
Yeah, that is. And I've backed that horse from the get-go. I backed him in the draft, and he is just, I'm whipping him home now. So, yeah, I'll be backing on Rick till death. So, yeah, him at 30-metre circle, beautiful.
How good's when you sort of, you're quite early on, picking that someone's going to do well, and then when they do well, you kind of feel quite invested in their performance.
Yeah, 100%. Jeez, you should the listeners should have seen the group chat after doing that. I was in a shambles with that pick, but yeah, now that it's paid dividends, yeah, I was spraying myself, but now that it's paying dividends, I'm just going to ride it because it's my take and I was on it first.
It's not that anyone was anti him as a bowler. We were just saying if you wanted to get him last, you could have.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I was saying that to myself too. Similar to if I wanted to take Chahal last, I could have as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I did take Bracewell last, but...
Yeah. No, but yeah, that's my pick. So, yeah, on to Crom.
Yeah, I was gonna go with McCarthy actually, but it is hard to take that one when it's probably not gonna really count for anything. Couple of honourable mentions. I just thought the size of some of the sixes, from Phillips, and then Finchie actually got one right out of the screws, big top tier at the GABBA. So there's a couple of really big sixes that I always like seeing. That Wood first ball to Phillips, that really got me going because that just flew to the boundary, which I enjoyed. But I'll have to stick with the Brever and Jackson Latham showing up for a flu day. Just really impressive to have the guts to go out there, get a couple of poles. Good for the brand.
Beautiful. Congratulations. Okay, so unfortunately, we do have to talk about this England-New Zealand game. Obviously, England made 179 and New Zealand were 20 runs short. I know we lost, and I know it was relatively convincing in the end.
I like where this is heading.
Yeah.
But I felt like England played exceptionally well, and on the other side, I felt like New Zealand were pretty poor, and a lot of things went against them.
Yeah.
And with 5 overs left, New Zealand had 7 wickets in hand. We had Phillips in, Neesham just come to the crease, and we needed 11s. And if those last 5 overs go differently, we could have won, but we didn't. So that's where I'm at. Boys, how did you sort of take in the whole game?
You've sort of segued that in nicely for me. I've got three takes to why we'll win the World Cup after this loss.
Yeah, I like that. Really changed the spirit quickly.
I've just been sort of ruminating on today, and sort of pretty quickly have zagged to like we'll win the World Cup here. Point one, we've had our loss now. If we look back at the 2015 World Cup, we sort of went undefeated into that final, and you just had that uneasy sense of like we've got to lose sometime, and it just got pushed further and further back until we lost the final. And I think now we've got that out of the system. So the boys have got rid of that, and we've got rid of that in pool play, and we've got rid of it in a way that's probably going to kick the Aussies out of the tournament. So that's also another bonus. But yeah, so that's reason one. Reason two, Kane's going to figure it out. He's not going to strike at that for that long. He's either going to get out or start swinging, hopefully. And reason number three, the final is not going to be on a day 3 wicket. So those last 5 overs where we were set up to like chase that in a canter is actually going to be on a flat one, not an old tired wicket in the final. So yeah, put your bets in now. Black Caps win the World Cup.
That is very positive. It's the sort of positivity you might not get from Simon here. Not to zag against the boys, I think I've just got a nervous nature when it comes to the Black Caps cricket in general. So I'm already actually very nervous about this Irish game. And
I forgot to get through Ireland first.
I'm just assuming we'll get through them.
Yeah, I'm not at that point by any means. I'm always nervy. A sort of half going into games fully confident, and then the back of my head just fully nervous. So a real tough place to be at as a cricket fan. I think the one probably pushback I'd say about the game last night was I don't think England were right at their best. I think they were good, but I think they probably left some runs out there as well. So I think even Butler, he obviously pushed it a bit early, but they didn't, despite being like sort of none down 10 overs in, they weren't getting away completely. Obviously gave a couple of chances early as well, which could have changed things. But they probably left some runs out there as well. So I think they've still got some improvements. There's a few areas, obviously, Kane probably being one of the biggest ones that are still worrying as a Black Caps fan. But I definitely like that. I like the theory that you've got to lose one. T20 just a hard game to keep winning in it. So I do like the theory we've got to get one out the way, like playing all these big sides, Aussies, Englands, even the Lankins. You're going to get sort of an India or a South Africa. It's going to be hard to go undefeated against all these sides. So get your loss out the way, and then, yeah, if we can take care of business against Ireland, then let's all go for a semi.
This Cats team works a lot better just sort of flying under the radar. Yeah. So now I feel like we've just sort of shifted that favourites tag to England for them to bottle it, and we can just sort of like, you know, go under the radar, beat India in another semi, and then you just never know from there. But it just, like, to use another sort of cliche, England just sort of wanted it more.
Needed it too. They definitely needed it.
They were just far more desperate. Like, obviously, we're probably still going to finish top, and then if England lost, they're out. And they were just sharp from the get-go. The second the ball stopped swinging, Hales just pulled the trigger, and they went nuts. And they were always hitting to the good side. They were targeting our seam bowlers, whereas our spinners were largely sort of kept both Butler and Hales under wraps, but they sort of were okay with that because they could really take down our seamers, which you don't often see. And then with the ball, I mean, they've got so many options. They're not amazing. Like, I am watching Sam Curran look like an unbelievable death bowler, but I still don't believe it, and I don't know. I don't know how. Like, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing him take wickets. I'm seeing him bowl dots, but I don't believe it.
He's got a bit of a wacky look to him. Sort of just a bit of a diminutive sort of figure to him. Sort of like could go the eye of potentially being quite scarce, but also could be like rather annoying and just sort of gets on the piss and is a bit pesty and sort of just gets a bit annoying. But he's got plenty of tools, unfortunately, and he uses them particularly well. So very handy player.
They just they bowled better with conditions. They bowled into the wicket. They bowled a lot more cutters. They made us hit to the long side of the boundary, and we took the bait a lot. There's going to be a lot of hate on sort of Williamson, but it should be a bit more hate on like Neesham's dismissal, because to watch Mark Wood bowl out there, you know, he's 150k plus, but he's bowling short, and to think you can pull him over the longer side of the boundary, which is like 85 meters, just felt really silly. And it was just after Williamson had been dismissed, and like you could hit him to the short side, you could sort of ramp him over the keeper, but it felt like once Neesham went, that was probably the beginning of the end. But obviously there were drop catches. There was no sharpness to us, and I think just to add to Jackson's point of we're going to win the World Cup, that's probably the only game where Southee and Bolt haven't swung it, or anyone's hasn't swung it. Like, I've watched pretty much every other game, and everyone's swinging it. It's hard to believe that Southee and Bolt won't be able to swing it in the semis and finals.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, it stopped really early. Like, Trent got that first over and he cleaned out Hales. And I thought it was sort of going to be business as usual for it. You know, we were going to start well. Trenty started well. And even Southee's first over wasn't a bad over. I think it only went for 7. But it was sort of, as you say, Hales just as soon as it stopped swinging. I think Southee's length was probably a touch short as well early on, and Hales just pounced on it all. And yeah, it is hard to see them not bowling better again and the ball swinging a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like what we take away is we were right there, and they were tournament favourites, and we, as you said, we probably dropped that game instead of them really like dominating us. And like we deleted Australia as well in that game. We played them. So like, to have a pretty close one against England that like we just sort of fumbled away and we tipped up Australia in a big way. I think we're like, that's that sort of wake up call loss. A few things to tune up against Ireland, and then we hit the finals just all guns blazing.
I think before we lose all our English listeners and sort of become a real Homer sort of a pod, I think England were quite impressive though, and I think even though they had came in off a loss and sort of a rained out game, like just messaging everyone like pre-game, it's like far out, and this is still a very scary side.
England are very good. I still think they're probably the favourites for this tournament.
They're the best team.
Yeah, they're so good.
Watching them, and
just on paper.
Best balanced team, I think. Like Butler and Hales. Hales, I mean, he wasn't looking the best, but sort of got it together last night. Butler's like just so classy. How hard he can hit the ball. The bat speed he's got.
You can't bowl him. Once he's in, like you can't afford to drop him twice. But once he's going, there's always going to be a gap in your field, and he will find it. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter what your field is.
He's quite sort of a bit cliche. He's a bit De Villiers like him, and when he's like, as soon as he's in, it's like there's actually no place to bowl to this guy. Like he's just, and then the power they have through the middle is like it's pretty relentless.
When you feel like 5 back's not enough, you know you're like in for a fucking long night. And if Butler's on, that's what it feels like. You're like, fuck, I need 6, 7 back here, and I still probably am going to go the distance.
And they've got, I quite like their bowling attack. Like obviously we talked about them missing Archer and that really genuine world class threat, but just they've got so many different options. Like they bowled 7 bowlers, and Moeen Ali bowled 1 over, and Stokes bowled 1 over, and you got Livingston who can bowl leg spinners, and then he bowls offies, and you got Curran, and then like, Chris Jordan's not playing, and like you got Mark Wood bowling pace. Who's not even actually? It's quite interesting. He's not even bowling slow balls. He's literally just bowling bumpers, and which kind of explains why he's on average the fastest bowler, because he's apparently the only bowler that doesn't bowl a slow ball.
Their attack's actually very similar balance to us. Like Wood's there, Ferguson, Curran's there, Bolt. They've got the spinners there. Wokes is like they've got a very similar sort of balanced attack to us. It's sort of all, I don't know, it is all coming together nicely for England, because just the power of their batting, and then they've probably got sort of 1 or 2 more options with the bat, like with the bowling as well. It's like sort of Stokes is there, Nisham, like it's quite a similar side. It's
like their team's slightly better, just like they've got got a couple more options with the ball, like their all-rounders are.
They've got a bit more trust in those bowlers 6 and 7 as well. Like if you look at us, we've just gone 4 from everyone from the 5 bowlers, whereas like Moeen Ali 1 for 4, like that's a genius over. Stokes like went for 10, but they're all going for about that. So it's like, fuck, just trusting those guys to maybe have a look at an over is huge, because like you never know what Nisha might do. Or
like I feel like we only will go to a guy when it's like absolutely needed, if someone else is like really taking some tap. Whereas they're happy to go to someone just because they feel it's the right time, or they're willing to try something.
Mark Wood's bowled 3 overs, and you'd say he's probably their strike bowler and should be like he should be bowling us 4 every week in this England side, but like he doesn't, because they realise that maybe that's not the best option on the day. So yeah, I think we can take some lessons definitely from that side of their game for sure.
They bat a lot deeper than New Zealand do. Like we kind of. Like you bet to Santner at 7, whereas they've got Curran at 8, or they had David Milan at 8 the last night, and you've even got Wokes at 9. So it allows them to go harder a bit earlier. Obviously, we bowled okay to sort of pull that back, but that 179 just always felt like 15 too many, and it sort of meant that we needed Finn Allen to get off to a flyer. Otherwise, we were always going to have to play catch up, and that didn't quite work.
And saying that though, as we've said, like we actually were timing it quite nicely. Like when we were messaging sort of 60 off 5, like we've got a lot of wickets in hand here. The only thing that's going to stop us is that if we lose wickets and the new guys coming in can't just get away, and that's too many. And unfortunately, that's sort of proved what happened.
I think you get that on the slower, older surfaces as well. Like, that's where that comment I made about, like, look, it'll be a fresh one for the final. We'll sort of play more into our hands, because as that skill level drops off, it becomes harder on a variable surface to come in and hit from ball 1. I think that's a really underestimated skill, because we see it all the time as a guy come out, Nisham comes out quite a bit and hits 20 off his first 5 balls. But I think people don't realise actually how difficult doing that is, and how difficult it gets as the surface, 100%. Like the surface deteriorates by a little bit, and that gets like exponentially harder to do. So I think like that's going to play into things better for us in a final or a semi on a better surface, as those guys coming in will find it easier to hit and go at the required run rate. Whereas, last night on that tired surface, slightly older, like it might not seem to be that big difference, but it makes it so much harder for those new guys to come in and go at 12s straight off the bat.
100%. And their attack's not perfect, and like Ireland's sort of given them some tap before. So if we can get in that situation again, like there's no guarantee that they'll nail those last 5 overs like they did. Like if a couple, it's sort of like it was a very similar situation to the semi-final last year where Neesham got away, and then once you sort of get a couple, the momentum sort of goes with the batting team, and the bowlers start to feel a little tighter, and whereas it sort of went the other way. But that could easily go New Zealand's way in the future. Should we talk about our batting innings? So obviously, I sort of touched on we needed sort of Finn potentially to have a fast start, which didn't. He hit 1-6, but then he was gone at sort of 26. 26 for 2, 28 for 2, sorry. And then Kane and Phillips put on about 90 odd by the looks of it, until Kane was dismissed for a runnable 40. Now, should we have the Williamson conversation, because it's really hot topic at the moment? Where do you boys sit on Kane?
Basically, the way the top order's set up is like I still think Kane needs to be there, and I think he needs to bat at 3. But I think there does need to be that flexibility of like who comes out depending on which opener gets out. That's just another probably a take for another day, because it didn't happen today. But he needs to find a way to start quicker. Like if you're gonna bat in the power play, striking at 100 is not going to do it, because like Kane is a generational talent, and like we all know how good a batter he is, but he just doesn't have that power game that like a Phillips or a Daryl Mitchell or even Conway's got a little bit. Like he just doesn't have that muscle power game to get himself to sort of change gears up with 5 guys back. So we really need him to strike. Like he needs to just play those good shots with fielders up, maximise them. And even if he's going at 120, we're just such a better side. So I think we just need, if he's in that power play, he's just got to get a little bit more creative, potentially with some of his shot selection, to sort of maximise only having 2 guys out. Because, we're just that little bit above 100, because batting at 100, he's just never going to, like, I don't see a world where he gets 70 off 50, if that makes sense. Being 40 off 40, even 80 off 60, I just can't see it happening from that position with his game on a big ground. I think he just needs to take maybe some more risks early on. Like we've got Phillips is batting well, Daryl Mitchell's a hell of a player, Neesham and Santner have done it before, so I think just a little bit more trust, take a few more risks early on, and then this batting order will set alight.
The biggest thing that with Kane is obviously he doesn't have like all the shots of like a Butler. Like his great strength in Test cricket and that is that he's like very defensively sound and then can just put away a bad ball. But he's not like a huge one to invent and take, like a really good ball and still put it away and find a place to hit that. So if he's going to play to that strength, he needs to at least be getting like 1s and 2s constantly. And just being like, for me at the moment, there's not a lot of purpose to his batting. Like when you see Phillips come out, as his Radic is sort of, he can come out and say he's at least very busy at the crease, and sort of he looks like he just pumps things up a level with the way he's running. All those little things that at the moment it just doesn't seem like Kane's doing. So he needs to be like a lot of sort of dots he's got to return into 1s, and especially on these bigger decks, he's got to be, if he's not boundary hitting all the time and inventing, he's got to be getting more 2s and 1s and 2s, and like the amount of dot balls he's facing, as we mentioned last time, is just like far too high. So I think he's got a place in the side, because I still like always still think like in the middle he's quite calm, and again like he was on pace to sort of time us perfectly there, like at the end if he had stayed out there. But the problem is he's always getting out, like just as he's sort of getting into a position where maybe he can go or we're getting better, he's getting out as well. So I'd like to see Kane just like a lot busier at the crease, turning like dots into ones and ones into twos.
I think in a way he did his job. We're under the pump, and he's got us to him and Phillips have got us to a position where we can launch again. But I think what you guys are saying is right. Like he's 40 off 40, where he could easily be 50 off 40 if he's rotating better, or if he's hitting a few more boundaries earlier. But I think one of the biggest issues for me is I think he's just struggling to time the ball. I don't see him hitting the ball hard anymore. I don't see him.
Munter, you sent through a message last night when Phillips got out there and sort of cut one away early on for 4 and sent a message through of just like how the difference and how well the boys are timing the ball. Like Phillips is, I mean, you can't compare everyone to Phillips at the moment. Like when a guy's in form, you're just not going to hit it as well as him. But it was just like such a noticeable difference early on of how well Phillips hit it, sort of from like quite early on to how Kane was still sort of struggling.
Yeah, because I don't necessarily have a problem with the slowish starts. I think potentially if it's him and Conway, that could be an issue until Conway gets going. But if he has the ability to catch up, like Coley's been doing it, where he starts slow and obviously he can catch up later, and you end up, even Finch did it the other night against Ireland, where he ended up 60 or 40 odd. But at the moment, I can't see him catching up like he did in the final of the World Cup last year. And maybe he thinks he doesn't need to when he's got Phillips going the other end. Like maybe that's the right call. I don't know, but
it's really hard to know as well. Like, because you're not privy to like the conversations in the middle. It's hard to know how much they're talking and they're sort of both on the same page, like Phillips and Kane. Like, is Phillips having to invent some shots, and how much pressure does that put on him to play shots he doesn't want to, thinking he's sort of got to do everything because Kane's not hitting it well? Or are they like both on the same page where Phillips is like, no, I'm in good form, you just get me the one and I can do this? So it's sort of the conversations you miss out on just being a fan. But
yeah, and I think the comment you bring in about him like increasing his twos and just that busyness at the crease, like I think that's where he will find his rhythm in T20 cricket, like because he's not getting those. He's faced a couple of balls and then it's like maybe I've got to get a boundary, or it's like a single, and then your strike rate's never coming back. Whereas if, as you said, every ball you're getting a single, and on a big ground you're running two every now and then, like you're naturally going to strike nearly at 150 anyway. Like if that's your sort of your process. So yeah, I think he can play that steady accumulator role, but he just needs to get twos if he can, run really hard, and then that's going to get that strike rate just that little bit higher. Because I think, like, while we did need the ship to be steady there, like, I hate to use an ACC term, but like while it was needed, T20 cricket, when you're chasing 180, like if that last 5 overs we needed 50 instead of 60, things just get that little bit easier. You need a couple less boundaries in the chase, and I think you need to figure out a way to sort of resurrect an innings striking at 120, and hopefully sort of on these big grounds he can find that with running hard and getting a bit more rhythm, because we really need it out of him.
And lest we forget, he dropped Josh Butler and cost us the game. So
yeah, Finn
just add that in there.
But should we talk about Sir Glenn Phillips again, who's in the form of his life, essentially?
I'll tell you what, if there's a guy that got on Anrik Norkie early, there's a guy that got on Phillips even earlier, and that's Matt Hunter.
I didn't want to pump myself up, but I will. I did mention that I thought that he'd be a very important cog for us. I thought Conway might be more important, but to see it actually, I mean, you never expect it to see it like this. Like, he just looks unbelievable. Like he's just such an athlete. Like, everything he does is with so much power and pace. Like, he's so strong. He can hit it so hard in so many different areas, and he was so close to pulling that off. Like when he took apart Rashid in that, I think it was the 14th or 15th over, I thought, we're on here. We are definitely on.
Yeah.
Like that slog sweep was over 100, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he just looks, and even what I'm most impressed about is not just the hitting towards the end. It's actually like he's coming in 2 games in a row. He's coming in a bit of a crisis, and he's a genuine batter. Like he's got a Test match 50, and he's playing cricket shots, and he's just naturally scoring quickly just from timing it. There wasn't as much of the weird shuffling from like left to right as there was in the Sri Lankan game, which I liked. But he got us in. Him and Kane got us into that position to launch, and if only he could just sort out his off-spin bowling, he'd be the complete package.
Yeah, if we could get Mo and Ali overs out of him, that would just be outstanding, really. To have him be able to bowl those offies to left-handers would be brilliant. But yeah, as you said, his batting he might be one of the best middle-order batters in the world at the moment. The way he's striking it under pressure, as you said, he's performing under pressure, which is always a sign of a guy that's really, really starting to get into some form. So yeah, I mean, full credit to you, Matt. You got on the train early and we'll just jump on the back.
Yeah, I think what's most noticeable about him at the moment is just how keen he's looking at the moment. He's coming in, we're a couple down, and he's sort of charging out to the middle, ready to it's almost sort of tough comparison, but it's like how Kohli used to sort of run onto the field right, I'm ready to do the job here. This is just his stage, and he's ready to run out there and get on with the job, and he just looks ready to go from ball one. So, yeah, he's a guy sort of at let's hope it's not the peak of his powers, but he's looking sort of just in control of his game at the moment and just ready to bat and bat.
100%. Boys, looking towards our last game against Ireland. It's funny when your team loses, how quickly the fans just want wholesale changes.
Yeah.
So in the last day, I've seen obviously Williamson to be dropped, Southey to be dropped, Neesham to be dropped, Finn Allen to be dropped, Darren Mitchell to be dropped.
Yeah,
and that's just out there.
That's just in the group chat.
So I'm interested, boys. Do we need wholesale changes? Do we need any changes, or do we just need to ride the wave and we'll be back on track?
Yeah, I think. We sort of discussed this off air. I think this is the team we're going to win the World Cup with, in my opinion. And I don't think now's the time to be let's add these guys in. Or I think if we play someone, if we drop Southey and play a Milne and he gets pumped, it's well, fuck, Bolt got it swinging. Why isn't Southey out there? Southey was going at 4s leading up to today, yesterday's game. The bloke's doing a job. These guys are serious cricketers. These are the best cricketers collectively as a group we've produced out of New Zealand in probably my lifetime that I've ever watched. So yeah, I think this is the hill we die on. There's no point making changes for one game. You back these boys to get it right, and then if it doesn't happen, or we lose in the final, we lose in the semi, then we retool for the next World Cup. This is the culmination of not just a few games, it's sort of the years leading up. It's the year since last year's World Cup. So, look, these boys are playing very well. We had a slip up against what's a fucking good England cricket side. So, yeah, I think we regroup, we pump Ireland, and we just go into the semis with our tail up. And, yeah, hopefully it's India and we play them well in knockout cricket and we just get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I just don't think, especially with the rained out game, I just don't think this is a long enough tournament where you have to make those sort of changes. Some of the World Cups in the past, like the ODI World Cups, where they're quite long tournaments, you've got a bit of a case for doing a bit of chopping and changing, and sort of giving everyone a run, just in case of injuries, and especially there was even sort of more minnow games in the 50 over World Cup. So there's a bit of a more case for giving the guys a go. But I think with this tournament, we've got one game to go before the semi-finals. I don't think we need to confuse anything by making any changes to the team. As you say, I think Southey obviously under a bit of pump, but he's been brilliant at the start of this World Cup. I think, we were talking about, and obviously we're obviously not going to do too much on that Sri Lanka game.
Probably 0, actually.
The only thing you could sort of take out of it was how much the spinners did dominate that game. So you sort of always knew they were going to factor in big into the game last night, but I don't think it was enough where you're gonna actually pull the trigger and make the change to get, say, a Bracewell in there. I think this is, as Jacko said, this is the 11 we've got, barring any sort of injury. Like, I'm not anti-changing being made in World Cups and like especially with different conditions, but I just think this is our best 11. So
definitely, and I think like if we were going to make changes to suit different conditions, we would have seen that already. So it's like, why would you just spring that on the squad now? Like, we've obviously gone, this is our best team, this is our best chance. So yeah, we roll them out till death.
Yeah, I think, Jacko, you touched on it before about the we're not going to play on a pitch like that again. So like, only like if we were going to play on another third game wicket, you might make a change just because you want another spinner. But I think the chances of that is pretty slim. And like Lugsy said, this 11 is the best 11 for these conditions, like the ball swinging,
100%.
Everything else is working. We weren't even that far away from beating probably the best team in this tournament.
Just with the nature of T20 cricket, like chopping and changing can be like even more detrimental than keeping the same side, because like say you bring Chapman back in for Daryl Mitchell, or you bring Milne in for Southey, and then they have a bad game, it's like, well, Daryl was already, like, Daryl might have had the same bad game, or like the situation dictates a massive risk has to be taken and they fail, and then it's like, well, the other guy would have done that anyway, and then you've sort of gained like net zero because of that change, and you've just fucked off a few guys in the squad.
It really feels like change, like any changes now just for an Irish game would only confuse things, because we've actually got quite a set 11 here that are probably going to go through and just go all the way through to the semi-finals.
Jacko, you brought up a good point about just making a change and then it not working, and it might segue onto the South Africa-India game. But India brought in Deepak Hooda as an extra batter in for Axar Patel. So India only had one spinner, which is Ashwin, and Ashwin took some tap by David Miller. He went at 10s. They didn't have another bowler, and then Hooda got a second bowler. So it was basically like you said, a net negative, and thanks, mate. So that's why, it's just one of those things.
He got like a nice wee dislike. He hasn't played a lot of cricket, and 2 balls he's out.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Welcome back.
Should we talk about just, I guess, that game in a nutshell, just how good South Africa's bowling attack is and how good they look. Obviously, India only made a 1-3-3, and South Africa made they've chased it down 5 wickets in hand. My first take is obviously South Africa's bowling looks ridiculous. Like they dropped a spinner and they brought in another seamer in Guinea, and he takes 4 for India's top order, 49 for 5. All the big guns out except for Sky, who looked like he was batting another wicket. He's probably in that conversation with Phillips as the best middle order player in the world right now.
What incredible how many times in this tournament the tops get knocked off these sides, and then how sort of one player in every team seems to find it completely different and just be, I don't know if it's just you're a bit freer or just seeing it well, but one player's always stepping up for these sides. And then so many other guys, the tops are getting just knocked off these sides.
I think game in, game this might be a wee bit of a controversial take, because like obviously everyone loves seeing batters go nuts, but I reckon the cricket at this World Cup's been way more entertaining because of it. Like games 160 versus 160 when it's actually close, that's the best format of T20, I reckon. Like, fuck, it's all good watching 2 teams mow 200, but like when there's that genuine contest between bat and ball, the game is just in such a great place. Like this World Cup has been unbelievable to watch, like neutral games.
It's everyone's getting there in different ways. Like you might get 160, you might get off to a flyer, and then teams will bring it back to 160, or the top might get blown off, and then teams retool, and then they blast towards the end to get to 160. But no games is overly predictable. Like every game's sort of been quite close. To a degree. There hasn't been a lot of smashings except for us in Australia, obviously. And
it doesn't feel like the toss is like the last 2020 World Cup. It felt like whoever won the toss and bowled, whoever chased was going to win. And that's just like out the window here, which is making for great cricket.
I think most people would sort of like. I think bowling's been the funnest part of this tournament. I think guys running in, bowling fast, and actually like the batters having to dig in and work pretty hard for their runs. I think that's been like a huge factor in why this World Cup's been so fun. There's like a lot of guys bowling quick, a lot of spinners doing well.
And South Africa have just an absolute dark horse to sort of win this World Cup, and that it's great to see them coming on like they are because, as we've said, I think their pace bowling unit as a whole is just so entertaining to watch. And their batters, like Riley Rousseau's been 100 or duck, but like their batters around him just have that power and they seem to be finding a bit of form. And yeah, I mean, everyone sort of wrote them off of coming out of that pool. It was sort of Pakistan and India, and that was a foregone conclusion. But yeah, South Africa are playing some outstanding cricket coming into the finals.
Yeah, because you need a deep batting lineup to sort of get going. Just because, like you were saying, Jacko, the bowling attacks, especially at the top, are sort of having their way with top orders. So like when Australia sort of struggling, Warner he's missed out every game. Some of them are unlucky, some of them because the ball's doing all sorts. Pakistan, their sort of way of playing where Bubba and Rizwan do it all doesn't really work when it's the hardest to bat at the top. So they've sort of struggled because of that. But like you said, it's the teams with decent middle orders. Like even with South Africa, their top order got I mean, their captains he's already out. He just walks out, he's out. So like they need a middle order that can pick up the slack. Like they got Markram and Miller after, in that last game against the Bangladesh, De Kock and Rousseau did all the damage. They're out. Markram and Miller. David Miller's actually one of the most underrated players.
He's a hell of a stick.
He's been handy for a long while now.
He's probably one of the best number fives going. He took apart Ashwin pretty impressively. Did you boys see Kohli's drop?
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to miss. Did you also see Ashwin's reaction to said drop?
I don't think I saw Ashwin's reaction, but he's a known grub, so I can't imagine it was great.
He was very much, so that's Ashwin off the list of guests, I suppose. But
yeah, fuck, we had him lined up for next week, didn't we?
Like he had, yeah, damn. It was like that commentator. If that commentator could speak for him, it would be like, what have you done, Virat, or something like that? And then the camera just sort of stayed on him, and he just didn't move.
You know what's great about Kohli? He's just so big dog. He's like gave it a wee wry smile, and like no one can do anything. I mean, a couple of the absolute great goobers have been missed. And
that Molinari one is
what's going on with some of the fielding of being of like literally the highest class you'll see, and like some of the worst goobers you'll see.
I couldn't believe Mitchell dropped that catch off Butler.
Well, I could believe it because we got messaged at 10 seconds pre.
Was that another Ricky Black special? Was it?
He must be at the ground, spot fixing.
I guess should we preview the next few games about? So obviously we've got Ireland, Australia who beat Ireland unconvincingly. They've got who have they got? Afghanistan. Finch apparently has a sore hammy, so they'd be Green in. Tim David might have a sore hammy as well.
Yeah, but just saw actually just popped up. They've been doing some light running, so you're giving them every chance to prove their fitness apparently. Surely the physio just goes to the coach. That's the worst hamstring pull I've ever seen on Finchy, doesn't he?
He got 60 odd.
You say Finchy's won them till the last game.
It's weird though, but when you watch him bat, it doesn't look good, even though he's scoring runs. And
yeah, sort of as we preview the Aussies, sort of give them a couple of minutes in there that win. Like Finchy, as you say, I don't want to beat up on the guy, especially like he's got runs the last two games, and he got actually a couple out of the screws nicely that last one. Couple of biggies, but especially early on, like he still looks real.
He's batting so weird.
Just confused, like to whereas like goes so leg side, but then like sort of just gets himself off balance trying to hit through the offside. Like for a guy that's not seeing it that well, he makes it like
he's
even
so worried about his front pad being blown off. That he's
exactly.
Literally taking it out of the way.
I don't know what you make of that Aussie performance against Ireland because they got the job done. But Ireland sort of, I thought, bowled really well. Like, just as it would start to get away, Ireland would always pin it back and work
Didn't
pretty
seem to
hard
be a lot of
there.
urgency with giving their run rate a boost, which is probably going to come back to haunt them because now they've got to absolutely smash Afghanistan by like 100 runs, which, I mean, it's never easy to beat anyone by 100 runs unless it's New Zealand versus Australia, obviously. But
I'll tell you what, Mitch Stark, a couple of those Yorkers just remind you of the good old days of Starkey, though.
Yeah.
And he gets that right, it's still deadly.
it gave me PTSD from like the Eden Park game, just straight through slowly.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you what, looking at some of the other games, it's a real tragedy Pakistan lost to Zimbabwe because if
It is indeed.
that Pakistan-South Africa game,
That's
if
tomorrow
that was
night
for,
our time,
yeah,
is it?
if that was for all the chocolates, that could be one of the best like pace bowling games you've ever seen, I reckon.
Yeah, because I could see Pakistan just rolling over now.
Yeah, I don't know. They're like they might not put up a big fight. They might win it, but you never know. But like, fuck, if that game was for sort of top dog in that pool, that could have been like genuinely some of the best fast bowling we've ever seen in a contest.
I'm still eyeing that up. I'm still going to get up for that game tomorrow night because I'm hoping Pakistan will just show like a bit of pride and really, really put their best on display for it because they can still play spoiler a bit or just do like just rough up some players and that. Hopefully they put everything into that game.
Group 2 sort of seems pretty sorted. Probably India and South Africa going through. But obviously in Group 1, we've got Australia, New Zealand and England. And then England have got Sri Lanka last and we've got Ireland last. We've got Ireland on Friday. Is it Friday? Yeah, I think it's Friday. Yeah, Friday night.
Yeah,
that's
Friday
right.
night.
So essentially, like, if New Zealand win, we're through. If England win and Australia win, all three of us were going to be on 7 points, and it comes down to net run rate. Our net run rate's far superior.
I think I saw if we win by 1 run, Aussie have to win by like 100 and England have to win by like 85 to knock us out of the World Cup.
That's not impossible. But
not impossible, but like it gives me hope. Like as long as we win, oh yeah, geez, Crom. Sorry, didn't mean to tell you that, Crom. You'll be
no sleep tonight.
Now.
But so New Zealand should be safe as long as they like. Ireland's a decent side though. To be fair, they've got a couple of handy bowlers. They've got a good top three. Like we should beat them, and I think if we turn up and do our business, we will get the job done. England, Australia. Look, England's just a better team, I think, but they're playing Sri Lanka, who are a better team than Afghanistan. So, you know, Sri Lanka could get a bit.
Aussie's still not in a bad position.
Yeah. The only issue is that Australia's game is the day before England's game, so Australia kind of has to smash them without knowing how much to smash them by, and then England's going to know exactly what they have to do.
And look, if England are even half as good as we've just said they are for now, they should take care of Sri Lanka.
They should, yeah. It'd be quite interesting if on that last day, you know, England bowled Sri Lanka out for 140 and then they've got to chase it in like 10 overs or something. Just that would be fireworks on the last day. So,
bit of baseball, you reckon?
Oh, yeah. Last sort of touch, boys. So semis and finals and winner. Anything changing from your previous picks, boys?
Yeah, so I think it'll be New Zealand will play India. Are India going to be top qualifier in that pool? Sorry,
Africa will be, won't they?
Depends.
South Africa are. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go New Zealand, India, and I'll go South Africa, England, and I reckon we'll be getting a rematch of last night in the final. Is my pick, and then as I said earlier, New Zealand all the way.
I'll do the same, except I think South Africa will tip up England.
Rate it,
and then we'll tip up South Africa.
Who's South Africa got in their last game? Is it impossible Pakistan can't make it?
Netherlands.
No, South Africa, they've only got to win one of their last two games.
Yeah. And what's India? India's India's
got Bangladesh and Zimbabwe.
Yeah, it's just going to be South Africa.
Apparently, that last game is at the MCG, and it's there's like almost 90,000 tickets sold for India Zimbabwe at the MCG.
That is absolutely.
Is that Zimbabwe's travelling well then, aren't they?
It's like half and half.
That's genuinely brilliant.
Yeah, 60,000
so if
Zimbabweans.
Pakistan win 2 games, they can get to 6, and then even Bangladesh are a chance, but they've got to beat India and Pakistan.
I'll tell you what, then, like England, South Africa, if that's the semi-final that hopefully we've already won, so we're nice and relaxed. That is just going to be an absolute scorcher of a semi-final.
Mm.
Yeah, that's going to be a hell of a game.
So I'll go a New Zealand. Well, it'd be New Zealand, England again. I like what Africa's doing. Why not go New Zealand, South Africa?
Yeah,
fine.
Beautiful way to sign off. Anything else you boys want to touch on, or should we call it a day?
Nah, I think that's good.
Sure, there'll be plenty to touch on again shortly.
That's right. It all changes quickly. So that's us for the 4th edition of our World Cup coverage. It's only heating up from here. Our next one will be wrapping up the group stages and previewing the semi-finals. So thank you to the listeners for the rating and the reviewing and the listening and whatnot. Thank you to Piranha. Thank you to Lugsy and Jacko, and we'll see you in a few days.
Yeah, cheers.
Perfect. Cheers, mate. Catches.